Okay, today we're going to be discussing the ADSCO, or American District Steam Company, radiator valves. This is a literature on it. You can see that it came in 3 basic handle types: lock and shield, lever, or with a hand wheel. And this is the price back in the 20s. And this is the literature on the unit. I happen to have an example of the valve right here. ADSCO, ADSCO, rough brass with nickel plated, pretty robust casting, very well built, no patents on it, which is unusual. I guess there was, back in the day, they were patenting everything that could move on a steam system, so apparently this didn't have anything that was worth patenting. The typical hand wheel that comes with it generally looks like this. As you can see, it's been pretty bad shape. It's been completely pyrolized and damaged by leaking steam over the decades. We have created a 3D printed hand wheel to replace the broken plastic, but we won't get into that today. You start off with a 3/8 inch nut that removes the set screw. Again, a very robust set screw. It's 1/4 inch, but this is 24 threads to the inch, not 1/4 20, not 1/4 28, but 1/4 24. So this is OEM. Best not to lose this. And there's the this comes off, and there's the spline, which we've had to, which is usually set inside the wooden handle. We had to do a bit of fancy design. Thanks to my son, he was able to get that working. You take a look at this disc. It's a steel, was nickel plated, and it has pretty badly rusted over the years. There's ADSCO, and then there is a number, and this one happens to be number 25. Handle there. A heavily splined shaft, and then a pointer, open and shut, and 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4 turn, which presumably is the opening and shutting of the valve. Now, when you usually first confront this thing is going to be very difficult to get off. I've damaged at least one getting it off before I learned what the problem was, and inside is a whole bunch of rust, usually. So you have to soak it with penetrating oil and do a little percussive maintenance. This is usually inletted inside of this bonnet cap, so you can't pry it open. So you just have to gingerly, once you get it beyond this point, then you can generally get it off. And you see that's been stamped with the spline. And this thing is usually just full of rust. Right now it's been reasonably cleaned off. You come across a C-clip held in with the spring. Best not to lose this. The spring is definitely rusted, but it's still got some life in it. And then there's a follower, which then sets in the grooves here. This bonnet top is 1.5 inches, approximately. Close enough. if you really want to get tight, you can go with 38 millimeters. It gets really tight on there, and it's going to take a bit of doing to get this off because this is really deep. A lot of threads on this. And this is the bonnet assembly. Jacob style cylinder, 4 independently Acme threads, which spiral once, so you can open and shut with less than a full turn. There's the inlet for the handle. Spindle there, and this is the original disc. This is approximately an inch and a 1/16. And it's been set in with some nut, and it's been set in, it's been well staked. So if you want to get this off in one piece, you're going to have to grind that off and gingerly back this off, or you will break this this nut here. You will break the unit apart, and it pretty well trashes the valves. This clip comes out, it's brass. I filed it to make it easier to go back in, and this comes apart. The whole idea is this is supposed to slip. It's your typical Jacobs composition, rubber, and God knows what else material, which has long since failed. There's the, see if I can see the seats in here. Difficult to see there, and that comes apart. This is the weak point. This is why this has failed. Inside of here was where the gasketing material was. It was very similar to this composition, and there is a ridge here on this side, which is supposed to engage and seal. And then inside of here is the, I've got an EDPM gasket, which I've had punched out for me. You can see that the raised rib here is supposed to seal there, and then there's a raised rib on the inside which is also supposed to seal, and this is what's pulled up by the spring, and that's supposed to keep it from leaking. I guess it does, but it takes doesn't last 80 years, of course. Difficult to replace. And there's how it's supposed to move in and out. This goes back in place here, and clips onto there, or supposed to, like so, and then this is supposed to be able to move independently. You can see here very deep threads. You can see over time the steam has migrated through and built up little minerals, and makes it very interesting to get this bad boy apart. Goes back in like so, spring on there, the clip compressed, and that's what it's supposed to do anyway. My goodness. There we are. I think I may have had those. Nope, don't have upside down. Anyway, that's how that's supposed to go. And that's the spindle there. Now, remember I referred to this number, 25. What you're supposed to do when you design the system is you're supposed to contact the ADSCO people with the size radiator you're going to put in the particular room, and they'll ship you with a valve that's designed for that particular radiator. And what they have in here, there's a little spring-a-thing which holds that in place. You pop that clip out, and out comes an orifice, which is also stamped with the number 25, which refers to the number of square feet on the radiator that you want this installed. So if you have an ADSCO system and you have a radiator that's simply running away, it's probably had this removed and is allowing the system to overheat and the steam to blow through it and into the dry return, because these things was designed not to work with traps. Traps were an expense. This is how they were able to sell the job, in that since they didn't have traps, they could do it a little cheaper than systems that used traps. And since the orifice was fixed, if you worked it out properly, you didn't have to worry about traps if you kept your pressure low. No more than a couple of ounces, really. Otherwise, the system would allow the steam to blow all the way through. And, my, that's gone on tight. Can't seem to get it on. Goes like this. Down like that. Having the devil own time getting that thing on there. There we go. And you can see it open and close. So even if this thing's fully open, it's got a really small orifice to go through. It goes down on there like that. That's your spline. And she's pretty well back together. Of course, it'd be a really good idea to have a EDPM rubber gasket to replace the Jacobs composition that has long since failed in this valve. And that's what's inside an ADSCO valve.